The IPL qualifier one between table toppers Kolkata Knight Riders and second-ranked Sunrisers will be played today at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad. The winning team will advance to the final, while the losing team will still get another chance. Wow, if life had another chance to us. Well, talking about chances, the Kolkata topped the table and with 20 points, while Sunrisers Hyderabad finished second with 17 points from the 14 matches. Both teams having travelled hundreds of kilometres and will take little time to adapt to the new conditions, with their last league matches played just on Sunday. Despite Sunrisers' win against Punjab, KKR match against Rajasthan Royals was a rained-out affair. KKR had won 4 consecutive matches prior, with their last full match on May the 11th. Historically, Kolkata has won 17 of the 26 encounters against Hyderabad, including their only clash this season. This will be first IPL playoff match between these teams at this venue. The pitch at the Narendra Modi Stadium is known for favouring batsmen with fast bowlers effective early on and spinners gaining the assist to ease out on the things. The second innings making it preferable for the captains to bowl first after winning the toss of the 33rd IPL matches played here. The team batting first has won 15, while the chasing team has won 18 times. The average first inning score is 188, while the highest total being 233 in this year's IPL season. Well, this year's IPL season has given us a lot of runs, a lot of stuff to talk about. Well, I'm joined by esteemed panel of 3 international players. David Brooks will be joining us later in the program, but more importantly, it's Stanley Chirza, the Zimbabwean former cricketer and the bowling coach of the Zimbabwean senior national team, Paul Dinette, the cricket journalist, the podcaster from Australia, who seems to have gathered some moss and also fan following. Umesh Sharma, the editor of Cricket Tracker, who made his debut yesterday, comes in and talks about the statistics. I'll start off with the show with Umesh Sharma. Umesh, what do you think of the 2 teams coming in for the playoffs today? 30 seconds.
Both teams had a good season. If you will go for a comparison, you will look that SRH had a roller coaster kind of journey.
Right.
But KKR had quite a bit of a smooth journey, getting their 2 matches washed out. Apart from that, if speaking of the Narendra Modi Stadium, it will matter a lot. Like both teams' game will depend on how the wicket will play, because the Hyderabad not have the spinners, and it might play a great role at some stunts in the match.
Well, Hyderabad will have a little tough time. Paul Dinette, what do you think of the head-to-head between the 2 teams?
Well, what's incredible is that the net run rate for the season, KKR has just blown away everyone else. Their net run rate of 1.43, Sunrisers were second on that, 0.41, a gap of over 1. And you look at that and think, well, what's the components of that? The batting is very similar. Sunrisers have a strike rate of 169 across their team, KKR 165. So Sunrisers slightly better batting. Then you look at the bowling. Kolkata, number 1 for strike rate, number 1 for average, number 4 for economy. Oof. Sunrisers, 9th for strike rate, 10th for average, and 10th for economy.
So is it fair to say this is a match between the David and the Goliath?
No, because...
Why?
Initially I thought that, but thinking about it,
worse.
I think that Sunrisers have started to get...
Hold on. How many Aussies are there in Sunrisers? Go on.
Well, yeah, we can talk about Travis Head and Pat Cummins, and we shall. But I think Vijay Vayaskant, the Sri Lankan spin bowler, could be quite key, because earlier on in the tournament, they had some of their bowlers, Marco Jansen and others, going for some runs. This young guy, he's only played the 2 games, has done pretty well, has an exceptional record, albeit in other T20 leagues. And I think if you bring him in and assume that he's going to do a good job, suddenly things come a lot closer. So I still think I'm probably going to tip KKR, but only just.
Only just. Well, David Brooks, you joined us from London. Welcome to the show. Do you expect an Aussie to side the SRH, despite being number 9th on the economy, number 10th in the batting power play, and number 27th in the overall scheme of things? Welcome to the show, David Brooks.
Thank you very much, Sunil. Yeah, interesting to hear Paul there. I mean, the Aussies again taking a dominant position in this, and I expected Paul to go for SRH today because of Pat Cummins and Travis Head. And and for once, the absence of an Englishman could make a difference. They haven't.
Phil Salt, you're talking about.
No one's noticed them leaving so far, but there's one, Phil Salt, who KKR may be missing today because he's made a really good telling contribution, and that opening partnership with him and Narine has been absolutely fundamental to KKR. So for once, and I have to pinch myself, and the absence of an Englishman could make a difference.
Well, we've got a Zimbabwean coach. Let's find out what has Sikandar Raza brought onto the table and ask him and sledge him a little bit. Stanley Chiodza, are we missing Sikandar Raza?
A big mistake in Sikandar Raza. Anyway, look, I think today's match pretty much epitomizes the challenge between the two similar styles of play. I mean, these two teams will probably be going pound for pound in similar styles. So if I was to call it a boxing match, perhaps it would be a Floyd Mayweather versus a Manny Pacquiao kind of scenario. So just looking at this, I mean, these two teams, if they've both been in these sort of scenarios, they've all made the playoffs in previous records of the IPL. Between the two of them, they've only met each other 3 times. And obviously the Sunrisers have come victorious. So they've got a bit of an advantage, a bit of confidence going into this one. But just looking at it, these are teams that have an all-round performance being put into it. If you look at the bowling attack of KKR, they have not been dependent on just one bowler. They've been dependent on an array of bowlers, pretty much up the array of them are above 15 in terms of the wicket-taking column. However, when these two teams met earlier on in the season, Sunrisers lost by 4 wickets. And guess what? Travis Head did not play. He is in the lineup today. And I'll tell you what the fantastic issue is that David Brooks has just mentioned. Sunrisers have not lost any of their overseas players. So kudos to the guys who are doing the work behind the scenes for making sure they pick the right players who will be there throughout the season.
Well, we've spoken about teams winning the margin, the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, everything is all right. But let's look at the 6s and the 4s scored. Paul Dinette, would you want to just throw some light on the number of 4s and the 6s thrown, especially the SRH, who's completely rewritten the rules of the game by hitting at the top in the power play?
I've got a stat, and this time I sourced it myself. I didn't plagiarise this one. In 2008, the first year of the IPL, for every 100 4s that were hit, 37 6s were hit. This year, it has been 59. So you can see in 16 years the enormous change. But Sunrisers Hyderabad have hit 83. So for every 100 4s they hit 83 6s. It's not far from parity. It's quite an incredible development. KKR are right on the average. They're 59. And just interestingly, we talked earlier today actually off air, Gujarat, they're 37. So they're back at 2008 levels, albeit on this big ground that is their home ground.
Well, the template has changed in the last 16 years, but Gujarat seems to be playing and has taken a little bit of a time warp. Let's come on to Phil Salt. Do you agree with David Brooks' observation about Phil Salt? His absence will definitely hurt.
Yeah, I mean, Gurbaz is a good player and he may well do well, but I think that Salt has been one of the keys for KKR. What I do think is this will be the last time that England or Australia, I mean Australia's long since abandoned it, that players won't be available for the full tournament. I think, to be fair to England, they probably expected the IPL to finish a week ago.
Go on.
So there was a little bit of a delay in the schedule. There's been a few...
Why?
I think it was something to do with the elections.
Yes.
I'm not an expert on that, but I think that they released the first half of the schedule, and then the second half they probably thought there'll be a few more double headers, and maybe the final would have been the Sunday just gone, in which case they would have been able to get their players and away you go. So I think it's one of these strange confluences of circumstances. I don't think it's necessarily England trying to assert themselves to the BCCI.
Strange confluences of circumstances. Very nicely put. But Stanley Chiodza, just imagine the number of 6s hit in 2008 to the number of 6s hit in 2023, 24. What do you make of it? You're a bowling coach of a national cricket team. Does that make your job difficult, i.e., do you get paid more these days?
No, look, I have to put it down to the methods of training that are coming in nowadays.
Yes.
I mean, each of these teams have a high-performance manager. It's not just about managing your current crop of players, but you've got to be able to read the game, assess the game years ahead. So when you have a high-performance manager, he comes up with his coaching staff, and your coaching staff, you get the best. The methods of training nowadays are such that you don't go onto your back foot if you're a batsman. You've got to be able to swing from your hip, as it were. And that's primarily because if you look at the lengths that these bowlers are hitting, it's back of a length, that 6 to 7 meter mark. And if you go back with the speeds that these guys are now bowling, it will rush you. But if you're going to get boundary, if you want to manipulate length, you've got to be able to hit off the front foot or from the crease.
Just explain it a little more detail. Just explain it like this.
Basically, what I'm saying is because of the lengths that the bowlers are asked to hit in a T20, which is your 6 to 7, it means batsmen cannot hit over the top because you can't get under it because the ball is forever rising. But because you don't want plenty of dot balls, you don't want that dot ball percentage to be ever rising. For you to be able to make sure you're scoring off that length, you're going to have to come onto the front foot and play more of a horizontal shot. That means you're targeting that deep mid wicket to long on and deep square kind of area. So if you swing from the hip, you're able to manipulate length as opposed to coming back where you're forced to pull. But if it's a good length delivery, you can't pull. You have to play with a straight bat. And you play with a straight bat, you're hitting the fielders more often than not.
Well, very interesting point. In fact, graphically explain. Paul Tinnett, I just wanted to ask you about a certain speedster who's got the highest number of money today. Would he be playing?
He will be. Now, if I was in charge of KKR, maybe he wouldn't be. Now, I don't say that lightly, and you sometimes I think that I'm a bit of a cheerleader for the Aussies, so I am making a point against them. Mitchell Starc is a champion. He has turned up for Australia many times. I've probably written him off a couple of times in the past, and almost immediately afterwards he proves me wrong. So let's see him go out there tonight and take 3 for 20 or 4 overs and win the game for them. But
yes,
economy of 11.4 throughout the tournament. They have a very stable bowling lineup. They could get away with just saying we're going to have Narine, Chakravarti, Rana, Russell and Aurora, or they could potentially bring in Anakul Roy. It's a risk. He has been expensive. He is a champion. It's a big decision for them to make. I'm sure it actually isn't because they're going to play him. They paid so much money for him. He is a wicket taker. He is a star. But I think if it was up to me, I'd be a little bit nervous and potentially would look to omit him, which would be a very controversial decision, I realise.
For the sake of cricket, we'll ask an independent voice who's an Englishman. Should he be playing for KKR today? David Brooks, welcome.
Was no cheerleader, but he may just want to put Mitchell Starc in cotton wool to protect him for the
Exactly, that was the point, and I wanted you to take that dagger at to Brutus.
Absolutely.
Go on.
So I take a different view. I would risk him today. I'd put him in short leg as well in the field and hope that he gets injured.
Hopefully get injured. Stanley Chiozza, understand it from the bowling part of you. Mitchell Starc, should he be playing? One of the highest ever in the history of IPL.
Well, put the price tag aside. I would like to go with experience here. He's a big match player. He's proven. He's done it prior. And I think just looking at the surface, I think the surface will provide a dual kind of scenario, as in it'll be two-paced. But you see, when you have someone like a Mitchell Starc, his strength is getting wickets up front. Yes. Should there be swing, I would play him. Should he strike, then you've got something to work with so that the other bowlers can come in. So when you've got someone like Mitchell Starc, I would not sit him out for a match like this. He's a big match player. There is strength in having someone like a Mitchell Starc in this team.
Well, we've spoken about the big match power play. We've done head-to-head. We've spoken about the fast bowling. Let's now move on and look at the spin bowling department. Stanley, you and me were watching the Lanka Premier League auction. What was the trend there on the spinners?
It was quite interesting. You would think Sri Lankan conditions really favour spin, but as we watched as the auction further progressed,
correct,
it seemed like the teams were just not ready to purchase spinners. Now I don't know what that really means. And these are wrist spinners. I mean, each side you would think any team will be more than happy to have a wrist spinner in their team, but perhaps they're probably looking for left-arm spinners with regards to a bit more control. Left-arm spinners are very good with that, especially with the shorter format of the game. Or perhaps they're probably looking to go with a lot more all-rounders nowadays so that they can have that batting depth as well.
Well, interesting. David Brooks, your views on someone called Sunil Narine, and then I'll get in from the statistics point of view, Umesh Sharma. David Brooks, your view on Sunil Narine, who's changed the games, who's changed the rule of the games and everything put together, reinvented.
Absolutely, and he just seems to get better.
Yeah.
No wonder West Indies were hoping to persuade him to come out of retirement. There's no prospect of that, because I think he's had issues when he's on the international stage, with his action. That hasn't been a problem in the IPL. I don't see anything wrong with his action personally, but he's done very well indeed in this tournament. Keeps getting better, and that partnership with Chakravarti, I think, has been. They've almost been the outstanding spinners in the later stages of the tournament. So that's where the threat is coming from. And of course, not forgetting what he's contributed with the bat, which has been astonishing this year. Although Bhuvi Kumar may have the wood on him today.
Umesh Sharma, what are your views on Sunil Narine? What are the stats do you have?
I'll second the opinion what David said. Sunil Narine has been brilliant for KKR in both departments, be it bowling, be it batting. He has scored 461 runs in just 12 innings with an average of 38.41 and a strike rate of 182.93. Maintaining a strike rate of 182.93 is not an easy game.
It's a very interesting point you make. Let's ask Paul Dinette, the retro romantic guy, the guy who keeps reading all the books together. Tell me, in the history of cricket, is there a spinner who comes in with that mystery, with that strike rate, and with that hairstyle of his?
Well, you could make a strong argument to say that he's the greatest T20 player of all time.
Can you say that?
I think you can make that argument. If you were picking your side right now and you had to pick one player from any time, anywhere, I think he's the one I'd pick because he is outrageously dominant at the top of the order. He gets on with it. He either gets out straight away or he gets plenty of runs. And his bowling is very, very hard to read. He takes wickets. I think he's a superstar.
Which is the bowler that comes closest to him, as colourful as him, in the last 100 years of spin bowling?
Well, Sydney Barnes just doesn't quite make the 100-year cutoff. I think he was from about 1910. So you've tricked me there. I think...
Greg Matthews?
Greg Matthews. When I was a kid, I had the same hairstyle as Greg Matthews, which I sadly cannot do anymore because I've gone bald. But he was a real superstar for Australia in the 1980s. But I think that Sunil Narine has Greg Matthews covered as a cricketer. Absolutely.
David Brooks, what do you make of this bowling head-to-head between the two teams? Who do you think has slightly edge? Because in batting, SRH seems to be down in the bottom, but they can be absolutely erratic.
Well, they can. The fact that they don't suffer any international losses puts SRH in front, yes. Although KKR does have the superior spin attack, no doubt about that today. I keep coming back to Pat Cummins, outstanding leadership, outstanding tournament that he's had. He keeps demonstrating his ability to motivate those around him. I've gone against him once and regretted it. I'm not going to go against him today.
But tell me, David Brooks, you're a staunch English supporter, traditional supporter, i.e. you're the bottom era who hates the Aussies. But at the same time, you come and admire this man over and over again. What makes you do so?
Well, he's not like previous Australian captains. He seems to be, he seems to have some charm and and a nice, easy manner. He seems to enjoy his cricket, doesn't go over the top on sledging, doesn't bend the rules, doesn't fall into the traps of previous Aussie leaders.
Absolutely. Let's agree that he's the Paul Dinette with baggy green. Stylistic, what about the head-to-head for pace bowling?
Well, look, I think these teams are evenly paced, especially not just in terms of pace bowling, but even in just the bowling attack.
Right.
However, for me, I think, just to echo the sentiments of David Brooks, but for me, what I feel about and what I see about Pat Cummins is his persona. He has been a captain who said to himself, look, with my pace, if I bowl in the power play, I'll leak runs. Let me pull myself back. Let me hang myself back and bowl with protection. With my pace, and then with those cutters into the surface, I'll be more effective. And that's exactly what has happened. So it takes somebody who has a good persona to realize that, read the game, and adjust to that. However, if the wicket is slow, if it's dual paced, right? If it's too paced, I think this is a sort of surface where if both batting units are probably going to be really, really thinking hard about how to approach the game, and that means controlled aggression. If it's not too paced, if it's a good batting surface, then I think the bowling from both sides here will have to be smart about how they go about their work.
Well, that's an interesting point you make, Paul Dinnett. Who are you backing today?
It's a good point, actually. I hope that they make it a fast-paced surface. They've got the choice of the red soil or the black soil. It's the BCCI who'll decide. If we get a nice fast-paced surface, we could see 220 plays 220 and a cracking game of cricket. As much as I want to agree with David Brooks and say that I am going to tip SRH because I do want Travis Head and Pat Cummins to win, I'm going to narrowly lean to KKR today.
Absolutely. David Brooks, what is your choice and why? And how's the weather there in London?
Overcast today. We had 2 days of sunshine. That's it. The next few weeks, we enjoyed it. And now it's back
we
in
must
overcast.
also ask you, how's your village cricket boy cricket happening over the weekends?
Are you talking about the Oxfordshire Cherwell League Division 6?
Well, we're talking of the Big Bash. Let's move on.
We heard rumours that you got a few wickets, David.
Yeah, a few wickets actually. Thank you, Paul, for mentioning that. SRH for me today, just because I think that KKR will miss full salt at the top of the order. Gurbaz, it's a lot asking him a lot. He hasn't played a game since March. So, yeah, I fancy SRH today because they've got less, they're suffering less from, they're picking from a full strength more or less. And they've got with Head and Abhishek, the way they've been opening the batting, they are formidable opposition at the moment. And with Pat Cummins is the X factor for me in the way that he's leading.
Pat Cummins is the X factor. Stanley, who are you backing today? Finally, if you manage to change your mind.
Well, growing up, I used to watch a TV series called The A-Team, led by Hannibal Smith. He always used to say, I love it when a plan comes together. And I'm hoping the KKR coach will be saying that today.
Absolutely. We had Chandrakant Pandit. Your last words, Umesh, and then we'll wrap up our show.
Basically, I would be going ahead, like I'll be counting on Pat Cummins.
5,
because being a fan of Australia.
3. Is it SRH?
Yes, it's SRH.
Absolutely. That's all we had time for. I thank Stanley Chiozza, myself, Paul Dinnett, and our friend from London who's joined us all the way just to be on our show.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.